Welcome to the Charts and Outcomes session. This is on fiscal year 2016 STOP VAWA grant program. I'm Mary Wills, the STOP administrator. For this session, we will be covering supplemental funding charts, the community description. It contains three tables, the statistical documentation of the problem chart, your activity and your timeline, your accomplishments, which also includes the chart. There's a chart for your CRTs and your SART teams. And then we'll briefly touch on outcomes and performance measures. The supplemental funding chart, it's on page 13. This is your sustainability section. And you'll want to complete this if you're the lead agency or the subrecipient of these funds. It is also a federal requirement that STOP funds be used to supplement other funding, and this is the way that you're going to show that that's what's happening. You'll want to complete the chart using your most recently completed 12-month budget period. I simply ask that you identify what that budget period is. So, it doesn't really matter if you're using a calendar year or a fiscal year. What matters is that you identify the time frame that you're using. And then after you've completed the chart, this is new to the application this year, you're going to indicate significant decreases or increases and the reasons for those expected changes in funding. Next, you have your community description section. This is where you have the three tables. It's on page 14 and 15 of the application. On page 2 of the application, to begin with, you identify your area or areas to be served by your project. So that kind of defines the scope of your community. Then in the community description, you're going to be talking about that area that you've identified. In the first table, Table A, you're going to be looking at the specific resources that are available for responding to the crimes of domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking. In Table B, we're looking at the area that you're serving, the race and ethnicity of the population living there. You'll be able to get that information from the U.S. Census data. And then in Table C, you're looking at identifying for the area the underserved population, and you do have to include the numbers that you project that you're going to be serving. That's required under the STOP grant program because the feds require that we have subrecipients identify that information. The only thing to know about this section and using, under identifying underserved populations is you have to use the definition of underserved that is defined by the Act. And so I've included that here. It's also in your application. Next is the statistical documentation of the problem chart. This is on page 16. Please know that this is a chart that reviewers are paying more attention to. I've noticed over the last 3 years, reviewers are kind of looking at, okay, so we have a community and they have this many police reports and we have victim services providing this many victims. Why is there so many reports, but we're only serving this many victims? People asking those kinds of questions. The chart does include sexual assault and stalking because clearly those are included under the Act. You want to, the thing about this chart, because you're doing it over a time frame of years, you want to be consistent in how you're reporting your data. Okay, next we have page 17, and on page 17 you'll have your activity and your timeline, and then there's also your section for accomplishment. On your activity and timeline, I simply ask that you review and update it. Most of you have been doing this application for many years, and I really would like to be able to have you take a fresh look at that activity in your timeline. Be sure you're including your CRT and your SART meetings, because remember, we're looking at coordinated response, and if we're funding coordinated response, you'll want to have those things included. The other thing is double check your budget and your outcomes. So if you're requesting things in your budget, for example, like outreach, then I should quickly be able to see outreach activities on your activity in your timeline. Under your accomplishments, this is where you're looking at, we want to see that continuation information. So your preceding 12 months, what have you been able to achieve? The chart, we're looking at specific achievements that are being accomplished with stock funds, and then you are able to list your results. So for reviewers, I would like you to be able to take your outcomes and your performance measures, the data that you have from the previous year, and you actually just outline that for them, summarize it, and you can include any other accomplishments. But as far as your grant, so that because they don't have last year's grant, they don't see those where you're at and what you've achieved, so you have to share that with them. Next, we have the CRT and the SART chart, which is on page 18. This is really, at this point, we're gathering statewide information on coordinated response teams. So regardless of whether you're facilitating a team or not, if you're on a team, would you please quickly just fill out the information, give us what you can, and I will share that on with our statewide CRT and SART team. Thank you very much on that. Okay, we're at the final slides. They're on your outcome and performance measures. This is on page 19. My recommendation is that you first review the purpose of the STOP grant program, and then you ask yourself, what do you hope to achieve with the funds requested? And this is going to help you get at that broader goal. I've given you a couple examples. Greater confidence in the justice system and increased crime reporting by victims through coordinating victim services with enforcement and prosecution activities. Helping victims improve their lives by being safer and achieving self-sufficiency. So as you can see, there's a couple more on here, but I'll let you can go ahead and read those. And then finally, once again, you'll want to describe the broad goals. You're not going to have that many. You may have one. You may have two for your project. And I do think that you can have a goal regarding your CRT if you want. I think you are, you've all done this for long enough that you can show how your CRTs impact and have something to do with increased victim safety and increased offender accountability. Present clear objectives designed to achieve those goals. This is where you're going to use increase, decrease, or maintain. This is where you're going to show, you're going to be very specific about your numbers. If you're using percentages, you also need to use the number so that you can show what you're talking about. You're going to want to outline a plan to evaluate or assess success in achieving your proposed outcomes. I recommend that you look at your statistical documentation of the problem, all that data that you're providing. I think some of that could be used to look at, and I'm sure you have that data for many years where you can look at what were your trends, what have you been able to impact, and you may be able to use some of that as measurements. So that really does sum up our little session on charts and outcomes. If you need further assistance, just give me a call. I'm available, and I will gladly meet individually with you. However, you'd like your technical assistance provided if you need that. Thank you very much, and take care.